Imagine someone invented an incredible virtual reality machine. We give it to our kids once a week, and it lights up their brains. Over time, it boosts their physical coordination, enhances their social skills, promotes impulse control, and it takes their young imagination around the world. And not just around the world, but back in time. To the porches of Depression-era New Orleans, to the salons of 19th century Paris, to the courtyards and beaches of Rio, and a snowy Jewish wedding in Imperial Russia. The kids don't just get to hear about these stories. They're plucked out of their Adelaide suburbs, home or school, and placed in amongst these people's prayers, rituals, battles, fiestas. The adventure alone might be worth the price of admission, but what if we could use this as part of an integrated educational approach where through experiencing the texture of people's feelings, histories, and stories, we could help our children become savvy and more competent and more empathetic navigators of their own feelings, of their own culture, of their own politics, media, of their neighbors. This incredible machine, of course, already exists. It's called music education. And I'm not talking about music education so that we can produce a new Mozart or another Freddie Mercury or Elton John. I'm talking about music education for an 8-year-old girl who's starting to develop perfectionist tendencies. Everyone praises her for being smart, but when she doesn't grasp something right away, she starts to get agitated and discouraged. She doesn't feel so smart. And I'm talking about music education for our as yet undiagnosed 11-year-old boy who clearly has some learning difficulties but doesn't yet understand why some things take longer for him. Our 11-year-old boy, just like our perfectionist girl, are starting to self-identify in negative ways and avoid everyday activities for fear that these would expose their perceived weaknesses. Our incredible machine, of course, can't fix everything, but it can take these kids to some pretty cool places. It can give them some pretty amazing skills that will set them apart and help give them an additional pillar of confidence at a crucial time of development. But most importantly, our machine will give these kids a new and more nuanced and positive attitude to learning, to their own learning, and to their sense of what they can accomplish. They will learn that there are many pathways to competency. They will learn that it's slow and steady that wins most races. They will learn that they can achieve the impossible because almost every lesson they will be doing something that seemed impossible just 10 minutes ago, or last week, or last year. And through that, we can teach them how the impossible is done. So given the incredible promise of this enterprise, and given that so many people already do it, and given the incredible body of scientific research that backs music education, why are we so hesitant to embrace it more fully on one hand? And on the other hand, why does the experience not always live up to the sales pitch? Now, I have a much longer presentation that I could do that explores these questions in far greater depth. And in the couple of minutes that we have left, I just want to gently brush on a couple of ideas, and I'd like to do it loosely through the prism of this cute observation. Children seldom misquote. In fact, they repeat word for word the things we shouldn't have said. So what are the things that we're saying? Or rather, what are the things that the children are hearing that we don't mean to say, or that we shouldn't say, or that we fail to say? And what are those messages telling them about their learning, about their music education, and about their learning patterns more generally? We know that children learn best when they're safe, and outside of hunger or physical danger, one of the quickest ways to create a sense of unease and distress in a child is to flip the rules on them. When the child trusts us, teachers, parents, adults, to go into a challenging activity, be accountable to an outside adult in a one-on-one setting, and put their body and mind out of the comfort zone, we shouldn't then turn around and tell them that it's unimportant. If a child goes in and has a whale of a time and comes out beaming, we shouldn't tell them that it's unimportant. If a child has a distressing time and they have trouble grasping the concepts and they can't get on with the teacher and they come out crying, we shouldn't tell them that that's unimportant. And if they go in with that trademark look that certain teenagers have perfected of complete stony-facedness, do the thing, and then come out with that same face, we should still not tell them that it's unimportant because they showed up, they did it, they went there. Now, of course, we're not monsters. We don't go up to kids and taunt them and tell them directly that this or that is unimportant. But there are many things around us that do. Conversely, children find an incredible amount of safety in routine and ritual. For us music teachers, that is actually our secret weapon, because when something exists unquestioningly as part of their weeks, even if it's a challenging thing, a child will gladly accept it. And within that context, through incremental escalation of difficulty and challenge, we can help them reach the superpowers that I talked about at the beginning. Unfortunately, priorities and scheduling are one of the strongest negative messengers, and they reflect something of the society that we live in and the times. And whether it's at home or at school, music lessons are often the very first thing to go. And right there, we miss the opportunity to teach the kids about the value of slow and steady and about incremental improvement. And we miss the opportunity to teach them about seeing out a commitment and honoring what they're committed to. In schools, scheduled one-on-one time with an instructor who's perhaps known the child for years is usually the first thing to go whenever there's a calendar conflict. Now, in this state, there's a renewed obsession with protecting STEM time from co-curricular activities. I'm a huge fan of STEM, but I don't think it's the co-curricular activities that are causing the problems. And if the people who run the joint think that it is, perhaps we shouldn't trust them so much. Especially since so many compelling studies show that the kids who are taken out of STEM classes to do instrumental music, as a cohort, they do paradoxically better at those same STEM subjects. We know now and have a lot of studies about body-based learning and about learning through play, and how a lot of those techniques greatly accelerate children's cognitive development. And yet here we are, often still stuck in a kind of a Victorian era, mind over body duality, always preferencing the more formalized and the more traditional methods, and relegating play-based, body-based, and music-based activities into the realm of hobbies. And of course, it is just too complicated to be a hobby. We try to have fun, but it is not a hobby. It is too hard. And calling it a hobby, of course, misrepresents the kind of commitment that it requires from the parent and the teachers. In our society more broadly, as adults, we've become practically desensitized to bewildering mixed messages on the most fundamental things: truth, honesty, hard work. And our children are hearing these messages too. In Australia, we pride ourselves on an anti-elitism, even though, almost by definition, that anti-elitism has a flip side, which is a certain measure of cultural xenophobia, where some of us, at least some of the time, feel entitled to assert our right not to have to know or experience or engage with things that are unfamiliar or not to our taste, especially fuddy-duddy stuff like Beethoven or SBS. So between the lifestyle challenges and between the social pressures, I'd put it to you that it's more useful to think of music education as something of a mildly countercultural activity. When we're putting our children into it, we have to get our message straight if we are to succeed. And that message is about the value of their curiosity. It's a message about the quality of their interpersonal interactions. It's about having character in everything you do. And it's also about identity. If we want our children to be savvy navigators of their culture, of their times, of their politics, we have to teach them how to stand apart from the mainstream. And we have to give them the strength and the support to do that. Because they're going to need it if they're going to be the next sporting champion, or the next care worker, or the next prime minister, or the next decent bloke. So next time you're around a kid, a grandchild, a nephew, a friend's offspring, ask them how their music lessons are going. Engage. If they're too shy to play for you, ask them to show you their instrument. What are the strings called? What does this little valve do? What do these little bits and pieces do? Share a story. What was the music you loved when you were their age? Perhaps you played a musical instrument. A story I often hear is, I did piano for 5 years, but my teacher was a tyrant. Bonding over the tyranny of music teachers is a sure way to make buddies with your new kid, with this kid. And it's fantastic. Do it. But if you're going to do it, also give them a solution that you wish you might have had. Perhaps something like, at the time I hated it and it was so hard and all I wanted to do was quit. But now I wish I'd kept going or found a different teacher. If your kid does play something for you and you don't know it or don't like it or find it unfamiliar, don't worry. Applaud the skill and applaud the child, not the tune. And please, for God's sake, if they play something for you, don't say to them afterwards, when you're going to learn some Cold Chisel or AC/DC, as though that's real music and what they just played isn't. Ultimately, the message we're sending them is a message about the value of their efforts, the fact that they're loved, supported, and it's a message they're listening for, and it's a message that goes far outside music.